Okay, it's 6:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Nice to have you all tuning in on Tuesday night. So we'll have our regular evening fare of some meditation time, a few reflections, and then period of time for questions and answers, as usual. So let's begin. Just seeing who's checking in here. I think pretty much everybody here so far that I see anyways, got some meditation practice under their belts. So y'all pretty much know what to do. So just a few moments of guidance, and then we'll sit quietly for a while, just to get yourself grounded and back in the body, establishing that presence of just being with the body just as it is. Phrase, the body in and of itself, sometimes translated as the body in the body, but I like the body in and of itself. So no conceptions about the body or ideas or judgments or values, just dwelling with its elemental qualities. Start with that sense of earth element, ground, sense of solidity. Feeling the density of the solid elements. All the way from the soles of the feet to the crown of the head. Everything in between. Just keep gently scanning through the body to get that sense of solid earth element. Part of the earth element, solid feelings, is any tension or obstructions that you might notice as you scan through the body. Furrowing of the brow or clenching of the jaw and the teeth. Let the teeth gently separate a little bit. Relax the jaw. Any tension around the eyes. Just be aware of that and release. And scanning down, seeing if there's any holding in the arms or hands, chest. Or the legs, the abdomen. Allow things to open. Get some space around any obstruction. So within that solid ground element, you can also see space, feel space, openness. They can coexist. throughout the entire body. Tune into that coexistence of groundedness and relaxed spaciousness. Is that clear presence of the whole body? Can tune into the rhythm of the breathing, wherever it feels comfortable, maybe the entire body. Just in and out breathing, noticing the quality of rhythm. So for the next bit of time, just allow your awareness to tune into those three qualities of ground, space, rhythm, staying with the body in and of itself. So once again, welcome everyone to Tuesday night from the Hermitage. It's mid-October and just slowly starting to get our minds around the end of Luang Por's and in my time here at the Hermitage. We'll be departing on the 25th of October. We'll probably give more details about all of that later, but just the days are getting shorter, fall is setting in, it's cool. Seems like a transition is happening externally and internally as we move into the fall and winter. Trying to kind of think of a theme for this evening. We did get some news, some sad news today. There's probably not many who are listening to this who know who I'm talking about, but a very good friend of ours, Bob Madlam, passed away a couple of days ago. We just found out this news today, and we've known him for probably around 20 years or so. He was our main contractor, and he built much of Abhayagiri monastery down in California, where we our home base, and many of the new buildings and all the main new buildings were built by his company, small company contractor, and the people he employed. But he became a very, very good friend of ours over the 20 years that we worked with him. And so we were saddened to hear that he passed away after some chronic illness that turned into that which has taken him away. So reflecting on that, we were talking about it at tea time today, and Luang Por mentioned that he and Bob are the same age. And so people his age passing away from natural causes. And I think his comment was, this will be happening more as time goes on. People our age passing away. So until it's me, right? And then it won't happen anymore.
And then it won't happen anymore.
But yes, to reflect on this again, the Buddha's teachings kind of there are many teachings that the Buddha gives us, and many ways of reflecting on our experience that he encourages and says we need to do. And some of the reflections and that we're instructed to do are kind of sobering ones, like thoughts of death and dying, and a number of other ones that are kind of there to help wake us up. Some of the teachings and instructions that he gives are very, in a sense, soothing and uplifting, bringing gladness to the heart and mind. And it kind of gets, it's encompassed in the teachings on right effort, right effort being one of the Noble Eightfold Path, the effort to abandon and prevent unwholesome states from arising, and the effort, that's actually two efforts, and the two efforts to maintain and develop wholesome qualities or skillful qualities of mind, So these 4 right efforts kind of have a natural balance to them in those that are more taking an honest look at ourselves and sobering up a bit, and also developing wholesome, positive, uplifting qualities of mind that both work together to help direct us on the path to freedom. And the basis of there are, of course, a number of unwholesome qualities that we can all point to, that we all experience in terms of aversion and greed, craving, those kinds of negative qualities. But most all of the qualities that we're looking to wake up to and to sober up to are based in delusion. Even greed and hatred are based in the overall delusion of the mind, not seeing things clearly. Because if we were able to see all these things clearly, we would undo them, because we'd be very aware of the suffering that they cause. So there's a morning reflection that I was thinking about, that we often do after a period of meditation. We do our morning chanting and then have a period of meditation. And oftentimes as we're winding up, we'll do a last reflection. And oftentimes that reflection is the one that we call the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And it's a short chant. We chant it in Pali and English, and the English, I'll just say now, is I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I'm of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. So those are the 5 subjects to frequently recollect. So those are kind of sobering thoughts, obviously. And at least the first 4 are meant to really cut through this layer of delusion that we don't want to see, kind of the side of reality that seems unpleasant, the reality that we're going to get older, that there's illness that we'll experience, and that it will eventually die and be separated from everything that we hold dear and close to us. The last one, kamma, is a bit more broad-based explanation of how things come to be and how we can work with them. But the first one, I'm of the nature to age, or the first 3, nature to age, sicken, and die, is one to bring up for frequent recollection, because it's happening around us. It's happening to us. And because it's unpleasant, something that is threatening to our sense of security, our sense of stability, our sense of what we think we need to have for our well-being, we tend to sidestep it, ignore it, distract ourselves from it, pretend that it's not going to happen to me, and even can work well into the denial mode, even as it's happening to us or happening right around us. So aging is one of those 3 in some ways. It's kind of the more insidious one. Death is pretty blatant. We get our final diagnosis, and there's no way around it, or it comes on us more suddenly and we don't have time to work with it. All of a sudden it's there in our face. It's very dramatic in some situations. Aging is, as long as there's, not a life-threatening illness, aging is a bit more, as I was saying, insidious. And in some ways, that's, it's a real challenge when you're looking at a long life or many years and possibly some chronic illness that you have to cope with for 5, 10, 15, 20 years longer, whether it's of the body or of the mind. Being able to recognize and see that happening takes, and be with that honestly, takes a very strong person to do that. And it takes us to kind of move out of the modern maturity, retiree, on the move, everything is going to be fine until I just drop dead in my sleep. that level, that model of how we all wish we would like to see our aging process happen, and to kind of realize that doesn't happen all the time. In fact, it doesn't really happen much of the time at all, despite what the magazines and stories and media will try and convince us of. But to examine just the aging process, the sagging, the graying, the lessening of the energy, maybe the dulling of the mental faculties, and to take it with a sense of spaciousness, grace, and a good dose of humor, good dose of good humor too, at the changes that occur to us as we age, and to try and move into that gracefully, particularly if it involves starting to accept help, needing to accept help from other people, which is scary to a whole lot of us. The idea of actually turning over control of our bodies to someone else to help manage, that's a real challenge for a lot of us. But to start to get our minds around that through this reflection, and see if we can start to be the kind of person that people will enjoy taking care of, or people will enjoy looking after. And because there's always going to be someone out there who will help. And if we can just turn ourselves to opening up to that possibility, and maybe even seeing that it's a great gift to give to other people, to be able to look after someone's aging body, my aging body. So to be able to move into that mode of thinking before it's needed, and to get one's mind around it. This is a way to reflect on aging and its accompanying periods of illness, sickness. We're certainly getting a lot of reminders about sickness these days. All we have to do is go to the grocery store and put on our mask and see everybody else with their masks. Still dealing with this pandemic and its various periods of surging and relaxing and surging again. So how much do we use that as a reflection, rather than just seeing it as this massive inconvenience that shouldn't be happening, and trying to find all ways of blaming others in all sorts of ways, using it as a reflection for what this human body can experience: sickness, illness, obviously not just in terms of the COVID virus, but in all the other ways that the body can not function carefully and causes causes discomfort and pain, and having to figure out a way to help make it a bit more comfortable. So this often accompanies the aging process, and oftentimes happens even before the aging process happens. So to just consider it as a reality and again learn how to deal with it naturally and gracefully, because this is just part of nature. The body is sensitive and subject to illness and death, of course. The biggie for a lot of people. Um, although, as I was saying before, I think in some ways the processes of aging and sickness are more daunting and challenging for us to get our minds around and accept. But the inevitable ending of the life force in this body, which is getting closer every day for us, and starting to contemplate that as a regular contemplation to help us wake us up and give us a sense of urgency, of realizing and really trying to bring it home that this experience of mind and body and this sense of continuity, this sense of security, this sense of being at home in a certain place in this body, that will change, and we won't have that refuge forever and ever. And how to learn to pick that up as a contemplation, so that we learn what the true nature of this body is, what the true nature of this mind is, and do some query inside of ourselves as to what will be, what will the experience be like as the body and the mind start to deteriorate, and as we prepare for a complete relinquishment of these elements of mind and body, and to bring it into contemplation within the context of the Buddha's teachings. And inevitably, with all of these processes, particularly the dying process, separation from those who we are close to will happen. Separation occurs all throughout life in many different ways. As we grow up, as our children, if we have children, as they grow up and leave us, as separation from things like divorce or people moving away for various reasons happens. But the big separation being, of course, that associated with passing away of friends and family, ones we care about. And that's oftentimes more scary sometimes than contemplating our own death. I remember in a training class that I did for a volunteer organization that I volunteered for many years ago during the height of the AIDS, just as AIDS was coming into the fore, a training for a Shanti volunteer group to provide support for people with AIDS and people who were taking care of people with AIDS. And part of that was going through a death visualization. And as we were processing it afterwards, it was very insightful for me that more daunting than contemplating the death of this physical and mental process of my own was the feeling of separation, the intense holding to people in my life that I was looking at saying goodbye to on that last day, on that last few minutes. The process of saying goodbye was what was the most moving for me in that experience. So separation from the loved is dukkha. So waking up, this is the reality of human life. And the Buddha could be quite blunt and quite straightforward and saying, hey, we have to look at this, because not looking at it is the major cause of a lot of our suffering. And it's only when we look at it square in the eye and see it for what it is, the fear and anxiety around all of these things can start to diminish as we start to understand it more. So this is the kind of right effort that we need to take to abandon this unwholesome quality of delusion, of confusion that we spend most of our time in. And, you know, the good news is that not only is there this first noble truth of dukkha, this is all revolving around what I've been talking about, but that there is an ending, the possibility of the ending of the suffering that we create on top of the human experience, the natural human experience with all of its pleasantness and unpleasantness, the suffering that we create through being ignorant has an ending to it if we so wish to pursue it. And it's, of course, the Eightfold Path. And part of that path, in addition to developing this right understanding through looking squarely at the difficulties that we experience in life and how we react to them, is also developing supportive, positive qualities that encourage us along the way. And not just things that bring us mundane forms of happiness. There are those things that we can do that bring us those mundane forms of happiness. And there are things that we can do to even take us further than that into transcendent qualities of happiness. I remember talked about this before, and of a very well-known Dhamma teacher, Ruth Dennison, passed away a number of years ago and was a friend of our community. And a few months before she passed away, a group of people went down to say our goodbyes. I wasn't part of that, but Luang Por was there, and Debbie and Tankantiko, one of the other monks in our community, went down to say hello and goodbye to Ruth. And one of her parting admonitions to the visitors there was, don't just settle for happiness. Don't settle for just happiness. Referring to the fact that the Buddha instructed that we can attain a release of mind, a freedom from mind, a liberation of mind that is well beyond worldly happiness. And the qualities that he talks about developing, they're, again, even though they're part of the conditioned world and the development of the path, and will be abandoned at some point as well, but they're qualities that lead to the end of suffering. The Buddha talks about 4 kinds of kama. Dark kama, which is negative and results in more difficulty and suffering. Light kama, or good kama, which results in positive qualities and happiness, even mundane forms of happiness. The mixture of the two, which is often where we find ourselves. And then the 4th quality of the kama leading to the ending of kama. And this is the development of understanding and the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, as well as what's often called the 7 factors of awakening. But primarily it's referred to as developing the qualities of the Noble Eightfold Path as that which leads to the ending of kama. But it is creating kama that leads to the end of kama. So we're still engaged in fabrication, but we're fabricating, creating really skillful states of mind that not only produce a very sublime sense of well-being, but also serve as a foundation for reflection and development of the qualities of mind that point us towards the real kind of freedom that results in complete liberation of the heart. So that's the good news, that is that there is this whole path of right effort that develops really pleasant states of mind, pleasant in terms of not of this worldly pleasant states, but unworldly or transcendent, moving towards transcendent states of mind that are going to support us in letting go completely. We've talked a lot about them the past few months that we've been here in various different ways, all the qualities of developing generosity and virtue, restraint of the senses, many times talking about loving kindness and gratitude. These are themes that have come up a lot in the past number of months. And developing those qualities is leading to its good karma. And reflecting on those qualities is the karma that's leading to the end of karma as we bring it into our meditation practice for reflection on all of these actions that we've done and that others have done to help us, reflecting on them, bringing them into the heart, remembering acts of kindness, acts of generosity, feeling sense of gratitude for the people around us, the teachings of the Buddha himself, reflecting on all of these to bring up quite joyful and peaceful states of mind that serve as a basis for settling and reflecting in a way that then points us towards the ending of karma. One of the ones that we haven't talked about a whole lot, but I've referred to a little bit every now and then is one of the recollections that the Buddha encourages us to think about, the recollection of the peace of Nibbana, pointing towards the goal itself. And it's one that can be a little bit daunting because it's not one that lends itself very easily to conceptualization, but more towards the possibility of letting go of that which obstructs complete freedom from suffering, and the gradual relinquishment of all of our obstructions, all of our mental obstructions that prevent us from seeing the true nature of reality, gradually letting go of all of that we think we need, all of that that's causing us habitual harm internally, seeing the ephemeral nature of our waking reality, seeing the transience through many of these contemplations, and recollecting that the result of that is this complete freedom, that once we've really let go of everything, once we're not holding on, once the clinging to whatever it is that we think will give us happiness, and the mind that is always moving in some direction to get something, even sublime states of happiness, watching that quiet down and come to stillness, and holding one's attention in that stillness and that non-arising of compulsive mental activity that's either running towards something or running away from something, just allowing the mind to rest in a natural state. This is moving towards that understanding of the peace of non-clinging, of non-holding, of non-craving, of not becoming, letting go of the becoming energy. There's an exclamation from Venerable Sariputta that goes, Nibbana, Nibbana. Nibbana is the cessation of becoming. So it's not a place that we go to or a setup that we have to build on until we achieve it or get to it, but it's a gradual reflection of letting go, stopping the process of becoming, um, letting go of that drive to get something, letting go of the drives to get away from things, and resting in that relinquishment, that release, and getting a flavor of that deep, deep sense of freedom and peace that comes from complete relinquishment. So this is a recollection of the peace of Nibbana that we're encouraged to reflect on every now and then, and to realize that we have that potential. We all have that potential within us, and that through right effort, as well as the other factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, through the effort to see clearly and abandon that which obstructs us, and the effort to develop and maintain that which will support this process of clear seeing and total freedom. That's one of the main teachings, I think, that we should bring up for frequent recollection. So I think that's enough for a few musings for tonight, and we can shift maybe into some questions, if there are any, this evening. Let's see, some greetings. Okay, well, first one that looks like a question, a few question marks. Can depressed people meditate? That's a question that I think can be answered in many different ways, depending on kind of how we look at depression, or what we call depression. I can think of answering that question with anywhere from yes to maybe to be careful to not at this time, depending on what is happening for a particular person who might be referring to themselves as depressed. Depression is a real complicated, I think, mental state, and it's a word that describes kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different things, all the way from the feeling of sadness in a more simple way, to qualities of physical, great physical fatigue combined with negative thinking habits, combined with a very dark or down mood, with constant negative self-evaluation, and feelings of hopelessness. So depression can be caused from normal things that happen in life, and that might be leading to kind of a temporary state of mind, such as grief over loss, things like that, to more chronically debilitating states of body and mind. So whether a person who might call themselves or refer to others as depressed can meditate or not might depend on which particular combination of issues are happening to serve as a basis for that. Certainly, if the mind state is very low energy, dull, and is accompanied by unpleasant thinking processes, unpleasant, maybe self-negating thoughts, that sitting meditation may not be advised, particularly if you've tried it and it doesn't work, then that's a clue too. Because sitting meditation doesn't tend to be very energizing or countering these kind of relentless negative thought processes that can happen to all of us in different ways, but might happen particularly with people who are experiencing depression. So sitting and trying to calm the mind in a mind that's already very low energy might just exacerbate the negative processes that are going on. More active forms, such as actively walking, putting oneself in a pleasant physical environment, engaging in something that actually brings up energy, but in a non-stressful way, can be something that might be a decent approach to depending a person who's depressed, depending on the state of their depression. Also, moving beyond what we would normally call meditation, there's many factors of the Eightfold Path and many qualities to develop that are part of the process of developing the whole path. And if it's possible for someone maybe who's depressed to do something that's quite active that would bring natural uplift, such as giving of oneself, acts of generosity, trying to help some people in a low key, not an overly stressful way, but offering help to support someone else who needs help, maybe an aging relative or an aging friend, going and helping them clean their house or do some grocery shopping or spending just some time with somebody. So finding some way to give of yourself is often a way that can help bring oneself out of that kind of spiral of being down in a depressed state of mind. So, meditation may not be the antidote, but skillful use of one's abilities to help oneself or to help others can help bring oneself out of those intense, darker states. So meditation may or may not be the key, at least sitting meditation, but more active forms of settling the mind in a pleasant environment, walking, just taking a walk in nature, getting the body moving, bringing up energy, helping others, aside from, of course, severe cases of depression, seeking help from people who know how to help one through that. But those are things that I can think of to help with the depression. Paul, any thoughts on that?
No, not really. That's quite comprehensive, and as a kind of a package as in a short Q&A session. Very good.
Let's see. Okay. Ajahn said, enlightenment can come and go. What does that mean? You'd have to ask Ajahn, I think. Statements like that often come up in a context of another question or another teaching. And it's kind of hard for me to know exactly what he was referring to at one particular moment. So I'm not sure I can answer that question in a sense. Certainly, it's a broad term, enlightenment, and I would say that my understanding of certain teachings from the Buddha is that once one has realized arahantship, which is complete in final liberation, that that understanding is that's it. You've done your job. It's the end of the course. You've graduated. There's also periods of time in practice when we can have deep insight and have a sudden understanding that gives us a taste or a sense of what the final goal might be, even though we haven't completely transcended all the obstructions to realize final and full liberation that is essentially irreversible. And that those deep insights, those experiences can give us a glimpse of what the goal might be, or what the goal is. And the causes and conditions that bring those on are transient, just as any causes and conditions can be, or are transient. And so the actual experience of insight in any one moment can pass on, and we're just left with the memory of it. But it's usually, if it's a very deep insight, it's a very long-lasting memory and serves as an inspiration for continuing on the path to the point where all of the obstructions are gone and we've reached the goal. So that's all I can offer, not knowing what maybe he said, but perhaps Luang Por might have a thought on that.
Well, Ajahn Amro's coming.
Right.
You know,
Maybe he'll have some Q&A sessions on
maybe.
it.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Stay tuned. Yes,
Yeah.
he'll be visiting Abhayagiri for about 10 days in late October to early November. And I'm sure there will be some talks that he'll be giving, and I don't know whether there'll be opportunities for any kind of question and answer stuff. I'm not sure what Ajahn Yaniko's got lined up for Ajahn Amaro, but we shall find out.
Yeah, that's, I don't know much of anything.
We're
up
just
here at the Hermitage. Yeah.
happily separated from all that for now. Okay. Contemplating on separation from loved ones brings up anxiety and fear. How to deal with that? Should we practice Maranasati, mindfulness of death, contemplation? I would say that if contemplating something like doing Maranasati only brings up fear and anxiety in a way that doesn't bring with it some sort of sense of understanding and the freedom that comes from seeing things the way they are. But if it just brings up inconsolable anxiety or fear and gets one caught in a loop, then that's not the time to do that kind of reflection. One has to do these kinds of sobering kinds of reflections and practicing when one is able to have a strength of mind that can see it and not get overwhelmed. So if overwhelm is the result, and that's where it stops, then I would say, you've learned that maybe is not a good reflection to do at this particular time, and maybe to turn one's attention more to some of the uplifting kinds of qualities, and recognizing, at least for the time being, any goodness that can come from being with loved ones and being supportive. One of our refuges is associating with the wise, associating with the good, taking refuge in spiritual friendship. And those all bring up positive qualities of mind. One has to bring those qualities up as part of the path. It's part of that development of skillful, wholesome, uplifting, gladdening states of mind. And if the mind just goes towards anxiety and fear with some of the more sobering ones, then that's not the time. The time would be better spent to shift towards that which brings up more positive states of mind, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's lots of, because that's one of the results of any practice that one has to be attending to, whether it's contemplation of death, contemplation of separation, contemplation of impermanence, contemplation of dukkha, is that it brings up a kind of skillful qualities, and skillful, and so that there's a deeper understanding. It might be a bit causing oneself some dis-ease because they're meant to challenge, but it is there's a sense of oh right, that's the way it is. So there's a kind of an affirmation of truth. But that's a wholesome state of mind. It's a skillful state of mind. So that one has to be paying attention to what helps to reinforce these wholesome, skillful states of mind, and that's where, and if there's just anxiety and fear, recollection of the Buddha, recollection of Sangha, contemplation on spiritual friendships, and contemplation of delighting in the good, loving kindness, compassion. All of those
gratitude for when things do happen in a good way.
Exactly. So it's important that the heart is nourished in ways that give it a sense of fullness.
Okay. Okay, dear Ajahns, is the loss of our senses as we age an ironic gift if we are not frustrated by it, reducing our sensory consciousness and its resultant craving? It absolutely could be, if that's, if you're able to view it in that way. Our suffering and our lack of suffering is pretty much completely dependent on how we view any of our experience. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, we could say that loss of or the diminishment of our different senses as we age, if thought of in that way, if not frustrated by it, is the key sentence there, the key phrase there. It's a gift in that it helps us let go of the cause of suffering by seeing that if we do get frustrated by it, then then that just increases our suffering. I'm not so sure it's a gift in terms of pleasant or unpleasant experience. I mean, myself, I'd prefer to be able to see and hear as I age, just because there's a lot of goodness that can come from being able to share and be with our companions in the holy life, if our senses are intact. But to the extent that we can't expect that and that it will change, and knowing that and not being frustrated by it, or learning not to be frustrated by it, that can be a great gift. Anything that wakes us up in how not to suffer can be a gift. Yeah, in terms of, I'm just reading that last sentence, reducing our sensory consciousness and its resultant craving. I would be hesitant to say that actually just reducing the input that comes in through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, will lessen our craving because we're just not receiving the input. That's unfortunately, that's not the way it works. The craving is there, and is just seeking any input from the senses that it can to nourish, justify its being, and to find some sort of ending to it through gratification through the senses, even if they're diminishing. So we can't just put ourselves. I mean, if that were the case, we could just put put ourselves in an isolation tank, without any sound, without any sight, minimal bodily contact, floating in a nice neutral fluid of some sort, so that we don't feel anything. But that wouldn't get rid of craving. We start to move into, I think that if we think that getting away from sensory impingement will reduce our craving, then that's what's called vibhava tanha, or craving for non-existence, or annihilation, craving to annihilate ourselves from the world of experience, and that creates its own form of dukkha. So we have to learn how to reduce our craving with all of the sense bases intact, and then we'll see how that how the ending of craving actually can come to be, using our sense bases, using our sensory experience as our teachers. Ajahn Chah said, we have 6 teachers wherever we go. We have our eyes, we have our ears, we have our nose, we have our tongue, we have our body, and we have our mind. And looking at everything that comes in through the lens of Dhamma, and working on letting go of the craving with those teachers is how we let go of craving.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, on a practical level, as we age and have reduced resources, how do we be at peace with our homes decaying faster than we can make repairs? Well, if you can't do it yourself and make the repairs, and you don't have the money to make the repairs, then learning how to accept the inevitable, and realizing that a decaying home is just like a decaying body, and that if you can accept the walls that are peeling, and the paint that's peeling from the walls, and the squeaky hinges on the doors, and then turn that reflection into the skin flaking off of your body, and the creaking and squeaking bones and joints, turn that into a reflection on your body and your experience, then maybe you can be at peace with the deterioration and the decay of all of it. You can use it as a metaphor. You're watching your home and watching your body and mind, and being content with what one can do, and not expecting more than what one is able to.